Hello, Martin and Wintergatan family. I have an idea here for a rapid repin system that should allow Martin to repin an entire song in just a few minutes without any assistance from anyone else. So, there is a bit of a downside to this. Will probably require a bit of a rework of the programming wheel segments. However, I think the time savings are worth it. So, getting into my idea, first we're going to preface with Martin's current plan. Currently, pretend this connects wheel is a segment of one pinhole for the programming wheel. And then Martin has pins represented by these red rods that he is simply going to just place into the pinholes, and they will be held in place by magnets. And you'll have to remove and replace pins each time you want to change any note within a song. Now, my idea, instead of using a single diameter pin, I would have a pin of two separate diameters. You would have an inner diameter, and you'd have a smaller diameter, and you'd have a larger diameter. And these pins, instead of being free to be taken in and out, they would live within the programming wheel itself. They would have a play position and a retracted position. And the larger outer diameter would prevent the pin from being able to leave the programming wheel. And it has another bonus that I'll get to momentarily. Anyway, so I want the pins to stay within the programming wheel. This means you will not have to bother with pulling pins in or out. So in addition to this, so obviously you need some way to lock this into its two separate positions. You need to lock it into play position, and need to lock it into the retracted position when you don't want that note to be played for a certain song. In that particular case, you would want a center board inside of the programming wheel that allows you to change from a slot that will only allow the playing pin to move freely to an open hole that allows the outer diameter to to move freely from the stored position to the play position. So, what you will have here is a what I like to call either the sliding or locking plate or locking layer, whatever. And you'll have a whole bunch of these pins. So right here, you will have the top layer of the programming wheel here, the outside here. You'll have the inside down here, and in the middle you'll have this locking plate. So you will have, currently, with this pin here, you have it below the locking plate. You have it in the stored position, in the stowed position, and it cannot get through to the play position because the locking plate is currently in the lock position where the pin is lined up with the slot. If you, or perhaps it's better, I mean, it works in here too. So it's in the slot, but if you want to change positions, you just slide the locking plate just ever so much, and you can now have the pin move freely between the stowed position and the play position. Okay. And then when you're in the play position, you can also move back and forth from the unlocked position to the locked position. And when you're in the locked position, the pin cannot go back through down to the stowed position. I have here, off to the side, a mock cutout section of the programming wheel segment. It has 4 by 3 pin segments. And this black layer is the face layer that I was talking about. This white layer is the inside, is the bottom layer. And this blue layer, this is another copy of this same sliding locking layer here that allows the pins to transition from locked to unlocked. So right now, I have this pulled all the way over to the left, which in this current orientation is the unlocked position. So if you rotate this this cross segment, gravity will drop all the pins out into the play position. And then vice versa, if they're on the bottom and they flip upwards, gravity will slot all the pins into the stowed position. And if you move the plate into the locked position where the slot lines up instead of the hole, where the slot lines up with the pin instead of the larger hole, then if you turn it upside down, the pins stay in the stowed position. And then vice versa, if it's in the stowed position, I will just unlock it, everything drops down. If I relock it and then turn it back up, the pins all stay in the playing position. So what you can do with this is, for each segment, unlock the plate, drop all the pins to the stowed position, put a template on top of it, overlay a template on top of it, where you have a hole where you want a pin to be able to move freely, where you want a pin to be played, and you have a stop where you don't want a pin. So that way, when you flip it, so you leave it in the unlock position, you put it in the unlock position, you put the template on it, you flip it, and then once you flip it, only the ones that the template lets through will fall through. Then you move the plate into the locking position, and you can... I did that backwards. Alright, anyway. No, I did that correctly. I just can't... Yeah, there we go. Sorry, I have very loose tolerances here. I'm playing with a toy, excuse me. So, that was embarrassing, but if you move the plate into a lock position, once you have the template out, then the pins that the template covered will stay in the stowed position, and the pins that the template let out are now in the play position, and since you locked it while it was upside down, with the template was on it, everything is now in the play position. And you can do that for each of the 4 programming wheel segments just relatively quickly. You just, you take the programming wheel segment, you set it to the unlock position, you put the template on, you flip it upside down, and you have much better tolerances than my toy does, so it runs much smoother than this. And you put it into the lock position, and you flip it back up, and everything is in their proper play position, presuming you got the right template put on there. So that should enable Martin to relatively quickly and easily flip up and to repin a song relatively rapidly. However, that's not the end of my idea. As you may have noticed, as you probably noticed and realized by now, the programming wheel itself, as you spin it around, does the whole flip it upside down and right side up thing for you. So, in theory, with the proper setup, you don't even have to take the programming wheel segments off of the programming wheel in order to repin them. So, what you do is, you need, for my thoughts on how to achieve this, require two triggers. One at the top of the segment, and one at the top of the wheel that stays at the top of the wheel, and one at the bottom of the wheel that stays at the bottom of the wheel. And what these do are they are something that spans the entire width of the programming wheel, and you can set the trigger to either be in this case, if you push it all the way over here, everything is in the unlock position, and as each segment passes by the unlock position, you just have this little ramp here, this little ramp up section, and if it were in the lock position, as you go past the ramp position, it moves it to the unlocked. And then if you shift the trigger mechanism into the lock position, as it goes by the lock trigger, it follows this ramp up and pushes the locking plate into the locked position, the sliding locking plate into the lock position. And what this will allow you to do is decide, do I want at both the top and the bottom. It will allow you to decide whether you want each programming wheel segment as it goes past to either be in the locked position once it goes past that trigger, or be in the unlocked position once it goes past that trigger. So I have an example for you on how to go about repinning this. All right, so I have just put all of these pins into the play position. All right, and excuse me, this is a little bit complex, so I have a piece of paper here. All right, so the placement of the triggers at the top and bottom is pretty crucial, and you'll probably have to play around with it a bit. But the idea goes like this. You've just finished playing a song, and you want to change to the next one. Move both triggers to the unlocked position. So right now, this is as if it were at the top of the programming wheel because all the pins are facing up. So you move this to the unlocked position and everything falls down in there. And then likewise, at the bottom, moving it to the unlocked position, everything falls out to the play position. So, once you've moved both triggers to the unlock position, you need to rotate the wheel halfway. That way, each programming segment will move past its trigger, will move past one of the two triggers, and be put into the unlock position. Now all of the pins have been moved into their unlocked position. Just as a side note, in order to do this, you may wish to disengage the programming wheel from your drive gear as you're using that you use to play the song, and rotate that main wheel directly to make this rotation go faster, so you aren't just standing there cranking for a few minutes just to get the wheel to turn halfway. Anyway, back on topic. Once the pins are unlocked, you change the top trigger to the locked position and rotate the programming wheel halfway again. What's happened here is that, so as you're getting close to the top trigger, all the pins are coming up to the top and they're falling into the stored position. So when you set the top trigger to the lock, that means as they pass the top trigger, everything will be locked into the stowed position. So after this half rotation, half of the pins have been locked in the stowed position. Next, you set the bottom trigger to the locked position and rotate the gear halfway again. This will lock all of the pins into the retracted position, since what you don't want to have happen is, so once you've spun it halfway, you don't want it. You don't want all the pins that you've just locked into the stowed position. When they get back to the bottom, you don't want them to unlock again. So that's why after the first half rotation, you set the after the first half rotation, you set the bottom trigger to the lock position as well, and finish the rotation to bring all the other pins completely up to the locked and stowed position. That's deprogramming the wheel. I probably explained that extremely poorly, but I'm sure if Martin plays with the idea, he'll get what I was trying to get at. So once you've deprogrammed the wheel, so all the pins have been locked in the retracted position. You take the template, if you're feeling so ambitious, all right, stupid question, this is Martin we're talking about. If you're feeling so ambitious, you can just make one template that wraps around the entire programming wheel. Once the template is secured, set the top trigger to the unlocked position and rotate the programming wheel one complete turn. At this point, what this does is as things pass by the top trigger to the unlock position, that means as they're proceeding down towards the bottom, the pins are free to fall through to their template position, and then they get locked. And then when they pass the bottom position, they get locked into their playing position. But anyway, that only works so when you do that for one full rotation, that programs half the pins, having rotated with just the top trigger in the unlocked position. Now you set the top trigger back into the locked position and rotate the programming wheel one half rotation. This will have the pins as they are. The other half of the pins will now become locked into their template position. So now all the pins should be programmed for the entire song. You can remove the template and just be on your merry way. Align the programming wheel to the start position and re-engage the drive gear if you disengaged it. Of special note here is that with this dual diameter pin system, you can do away with magnets completely. Everything is locked in place mechanically. You can choose a much sturdier material for the pins that'll be much more suitable for repeated applied stresses of hitting notes. So that's the general gist of my idea. I have another note or two I wish to impart. Is that due to the number of moving parts in this particular rapid repin system, it would be wise probably to make each of the layers of the programming wheel segment relatively easy to disassemble, so that you can separate out the bottom layer, the sliding layer, and the top layer, and then the pins as well. This is so that you can perform any necessary maintenance, such as replacing a worn or broken pin, or maybe greasing the center layer so that it moves easier, or whatever comes up. I don't know exactly the mechanics of what would be necessary for this center layer. Anyway, so far that is all the factors I have thought up of for my system. Please let me know if you both on the YouTube video or on Reddit, probably is where I'm going to post this. Let me know if you have any ideas for improving this system. And thank you so much. I hope this was of some help to you, Martin. Much love. Rock on.